By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. The first item on the agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item is a public hearing on the conditional use application for 918 Fayette Street, Pop of Posh LLC, and Vintage Affairs Rentals. As the applicant, I'll turn this over to Mr. Peters to open up the hearing.
Thank you, President Leonard. If we could go on the record, please. As President Leonard noted, this is the scheduled date and time for a conditional use hearing on the application of Pop of Posh LLC and Vintage Affairs Rentals LLC for the property located at 918 Fayette Street in Conshohocken. And specifically, we'll be talking about the first floor and maybe the basement thereof. The parcel number for the property is 05-00-03008-00-2. The applicants seek relief pursuant to zoning ordinance 27-1203 to permit a studio space for creatives and photographers, to permit classes within that space, and to permit an office space for applicants' companies. Section 27-1203 permits studio space for photography and also allows uses of, quote, similar intensity and scale by conditional use in the RO district in which the property is located. That conditional use is controlled by Section 27-1204, and the standards therein were outlined for Borough Council in the zoning determination that is one of the borough's exhibits. Getting to those exhibits, Exhibit B1 is the application. Exhibit B2 is an extension granted by the applicants of the relevant time periods under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, extending those time periods to October 31, 2022. B3 is a commercial lease between the owners of the properties and the applicants by and through their principals, April Smith as to Vintage Affairs and Stevie Ray Smith, R-A-E, S-T-E-V-I-E, with respect to Pop of Posh. The lease is dated July 21, 2022, and under the lease itself, occupancy was permitted as of August. Exhibit B4 is the Borough Zoning Officer's conditional use zoning determination dated August 27, 2022. Exhibit B5 is the Borough Planning Commission report on the application from its meeting on September 9th, 2022, recommending approval. Exhibit B6 are 8 pictures with examples of applicant's work product. Exhibit B7 are the proofs of publication for the advertisement for the project. Please note that the property was posted on September 19th, 2022. And before turning it over to the applicant, we'll briefly discuss party status. To the extent there's a member of the public here that wishes to make a comment regarding the application, Borough Council allows for those comments at the end of the hearing without becoming a party to the application. But if you want to do more than simply provide a comment, if you want to ask questions of the witnesses, present your own witnesses, present legal argument, or file an appeal if you're dissatisfied with the result, you should make your intention to become a party known at this time. Note that if you do not become a party to the appeal, you would not be able to file an appeal. So is there anyone here wishing to become a party to this application? And we'll let the record reflect that there are no interested parties to the application. With that, I received from the applicant's attorney 5 exhibits. Exhibit A1, the deed. Exhibit A2, the lease. Exhibit A3, a Google aerial of the property. Exhibit A4, photographs. And Exhibit A5, the petition. And with that, I will turn it over to applicant's attorney, Mr. Ed Hughes.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hughes.
My name is Edward Hughes. I'm an attorney in Plymouth Meeting. I represent the applicants. I just have one witness this evening, but the 2 sisters are here in case you have questions of either one of them.
Okay. Does anyone from council have any questions?
Yes. What are your proposed hours of operation?
Sure. So Monday through Friday would be 8:30 to 5, just to have flexibility, to be in there using office space and possible, bookings and such. And then weekends would be 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, and then Sunday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And if we could, please have her sworn, since she just provided that.
Yes.
State your full name, please.
Sure, Stevie Ray Smith, STEVIE, last name Smith, SMITH.
Sounds for a testimony about the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Meredith, you want to go through your outline?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. What is your residence address?
For this,
Yeah.
where I reside.
Where do you live?
1300 Fayette Street, apartment 62.
And you are the sole member of Pop of Posh, P-O-S-H, LLC?
Yes.
And your sister, April, is the sole member of Vintage Affairs Rentals, LLC?
Yes.
And they're two limited liability companies? And you and your sister both live in the borough?
Correct. Yes.
And the owner of the property is Nick and Regina DiRenzo?
Yes.
And you have Exhibit A1, the deed?
Correct.
And you and your LLC and your sister's LLC have entered into a lease to rent the first floor of that property? And the property is a twin home?
Yes.
And the 918 Fayette Street is a duplex?
Yes.
And you're renting the first floor of that duplex? And the second floor is used as a residence, an apartment? Is that correct? And there's on-site parking at the rear of the property on Forest Street?
Correct.
And the property fronts on both Fayette Street and Forest Street?
Yes.
And it's zoned residential office?
Correct.
And that permits a photographic studio and similar uses by conditional use?
Yes.
And you filed an application for that
Correct.
in order to use the property?
Yes.
And you propose to use the first floor for a number of different uses?
Yes.
And the first use would be office space for your LLC and your sister's LLC?
Correct.
And that office space would be used by you for administrative purposes and also to meet clients and customers for consultation?
Yes.
And Pop of Posh designs and provides balloon decor for special events?
Yes.
And do you have another facility where the actual design is accomplished?
I do.
And so you wouldn't be doing any real design work here
It wouldn't be any
at this location?
building decor,
And
unless it were for one of those styled shoots or such.
And the office hours for the office use would be from 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday?
Correct.
And there'll basically be two office employees, namely you and your sister?
Yes.
And possibly in the future, one staff position? And what does Vintage Affairs Rentals do?
She offers vintage peacock chair rentals and other small furnishings for, events and such, showers, weddings.
And she has a separate facility for the storage of that material?
She does.
And you propose to use your space, in addition to the office space, staging for backdrops for photo shoots and events? What does that mean? What does that entail?
So we would, like to have a mixed-use studio space for, say, if a photographer wanted to come in and do a shoot, a holiday shoot, something of those sorts, then, between me either doing a small balloon arrangement that would be in the background of those photos, or April's vintage chair or such, she would add that, and we would stage it for the photo shoot, depending on what they want.
Sort of like a backdrop for the photo shoot?
Yep. Stage shoot, yeah.
And you would also propose to host events or classes for photographers and other artisans, limited to 15 to 20 attendees at each event?
Yes.
And you would also propose seasonal floral arrangements in the front porch? And you propose the event hours to be 9 to 9 Monday through Saturday, and 10 to 3 on Sunday?
Monday through Friday, we would be 8:30 to 5.
For the events?
We wouldn't, can I ask clarification on that?
Yeah. The office is 8:30 to 5.
Right, and then have the opportunity to go into the 9 o'clock hour, yes.
So the events could be from 9 to 9 Monday through Saturday.
Correct, yes.
And on Sunday would be 10 to 3.
Yes.
And you propose no exterior alterations or changes to the property or the building?
Correct.
And you're going to utilize the existing sign just with text changes on the sign itself? And the building facade will remain the same? And the front porch will remain the same? And there's no parking between the front wall of the building and Fayette Street?
No.
And the occupancy limitation per code is 20 persons? And you don't anticipate having more than 15 to 20 at an event? Do you perceive any adverse impact on the neighborhood or the community if your use is permitted? And do you believe your use is consistent with the historic use and uses along Fayette Street?
I do.
And you circulated a petition in the neighborhood?
Yes.
And you got 922
Correct.
Fayette Street and 815 Fayette Street and 906 Fayette Street? Now, how about the person who resides in the other half of the twin?
Tried to knock twice, but as far as we know, she's a elderly woman, and we knocked a few times. We don't want to stand there and keep banging on her door. So.
And did anyone speak in opposition to your project?
No.
And you did receive Planning Commission recommendation of approval?
Correct.
And the owner of 922 Fayette Street was concerned about any of your customers or yourself or your employees using his parking area on Fayette Street,
Correct.
on Forest Street? And you agree not to park in the parking area of 922 Fayette Street? Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
I do, and I think you probably answered it, but I could barely
Oh,
hear
I'm
it.
sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
It had to do with the signage. I think I heard you're using the existing sign. You won't be applying for any new signage at this time.
We would just want to change the wording, like
Okay.
a new vinyl wrap.
Okay.
But the same sign.
All right, perfect, thank you.
How often are you planning on having these classes or small groups come
I
in,
think
or
it would
on
be
average?
Weekend-based, if there were set number, but at the most, I would say 5 a week, and that includes like 3 to 4 of them being on the weekends. So ideally, if a photographer wanted to host a class or a styled shoot on Saturday, then maybe a Saturday afternoon one, and then one Sunday.
Okay.
just
There'd be enough lag
flexible.
time in between for people to clear out
Absolutely.
and other people to come back in,
Absolutely.
parking-wise? Okay.
Definitely scheduled timing. So, hi.
There was a neighbor, I think you said it was 922, that was concerned about their parking space.
Yes.
What is it, their parking space, is it reserved, is it their driveway, what?
Yeah, so we share, when you turn off of Fayette, we share the driveway that goes down. And then his whole parking lot is to the right.
By reference
So I
to
guess-
Exhibit A3 in the packet, the Google aerial, it shows he has a rather large parking area behind his building, which used to be occupied by Remington Burnick, the engineering firm. They've subsequently moved out.
Okay.
And who's there now?
It's vacant.
It's for rent.
Which tab is that?
Right, so who's worried about the parking?
The,
Dr. Sabanis,
Landlord.
who owns 922.
Oh, that's what I was trying to get at, Dr. Savanis. Okay.
And I forgot to ask, the property used to be a Pilates,
it
first floor.
was Pilates and Core Studio.
Right.
So then there isn't a concern that anyone that would be visiting your location, they would know not to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It'd be-
Thank you.
So do you think the traffic to your place will be somewhat similar to what the Pilates studio was?
Absolutely.
I think it's pretty neat the way you combined the two businesses, so
Thank you. We're excited.
that's yes, and it's something very different in the area, so that's a good thing.
We hope it brings, people together and empowers the creatives in the area and photographers to really do their thing and,
Yes.
have their own little following, which is
Little
fun.
niche to do it,
Yeah.
yes. That's
So,
nice.
hopefully-
Does anyone else have any questions?
No.
I think everyone's good.
Okay, thank you.
Very good with that. Are there any comments from the general public? And we'll let the record reflect that there are no general comments. Ed, you are welcome to make a final concluding statement, but you can keep it short because council does understand the limited nature of the conditions or the criteria for a conditional use.
Thank you. Again, a conditional use application And the criteria are basically, keep the facade the same and no parking in the front yard. And we've testified that we won't do any changes to the facade, and we'll keep the Victorian character of the neighborhood, and
Right.
it'll be a nice thing.
It is. That's why we caught our eye. We were like, we need that. It's fine.
So I'm guessing you're going to be decorating it,
Yes. Minimally, but
but I'll look for it.
rocking chairs on the front porch.
There you go.
All right,
Okay.
with that, if there's anything else from council, we will close the hearing. This matter will be continued to Borough Council's voting meeting for October. That's October 19th, 2022, at 7 o'clock p.m. here in this room, at Borough Hall, 400 Fayette Street, Conshohocken, PA 19428. The Borough Council does intend to vote on the application that evening. With that, we'll also come to the court.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in this
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on tax ordinance amendment. Again, we'll turn this over to Mr. Peters.
Thank you, President Leonard. We discussed a couple meetings ago that the General Assembly had passed Act 57 of 2022 that amended the local tax collection law to provide that homeowners who've purchased their home within the last year and do not receive the relevant tax notice can apply to the borough's tax collector for a waiver of penalties and interest. To do so, they need to still pay the face value, so there's no change in the amount of tax they need to pay. It's just that if they attest to the fact that they did not receive the notice, and there will be a form that DCED is issuing that allows for that attestation, in that case, the tax collector can waive penalties and interest, but again, not waive the underlying tax. And it is, given the fact that the ordinance more or less copies and pastes Act 57 of 2022, it is ready for your vote this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. So the motion, if council is so inclined this evening, is to adopt Ordinance 12 of 2022, amending the borough's tax ordinance pursuant to Act 57 of 2022.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item under council business is conducting interviews for boarding commission reappointment. This evening, we are going to interview Mr. Bass for reappointment to the Sewer Authority Board. Mr. Bass, are you here this evening? Hi, would you like to come up?
I feel like I was just here.
You were just here. We blinked, right, and you're
Yes.
back.
I did. I blinked in 8 months, 7 months went by, so.
Yes. So, well, I'm first going to thank you for your interest in being reappointed and your service on the sewer board. It is truly appreciated by everyone. And with that, I will ask, why is it that you want to serve on the sewer authority?
Well, as I said back in, I think it was March or February, it's really about giving back. I was retired at the time. I've gone back to work, but I still have plenty, it's pretty much part-time work. But it's really giving back to the community, and believe it or not, it's something I'm really interested in. So, I mean, it's an important thing.
It is.
I'm very much into clean water because I fish a lot, especially fly fishing, which requires good, cold, clean water.
Mm-hmm.
And just to tell a quick story, I was walking on the trail last week before all the rain, and I went behind the Spring Mill train station, and just to look at the river. And I've spent almost my entire life at some area on this river between the Perkiomen and the Wissahickon. And to look at the water now as compared to what it was when I was a kid, I mean, looking at the water where the Plymouth Run or Plymouth Creek goes in there, it's
Right.
beautiful.
Mhm.
I mean, the whole river is beautiful. And to know that I've got a small part in that, of a much bigger part from the whole sewer authority,
Right.
it's something to be proud of. So,
It is very much something to be proud of, and I remember what the river looked like,
yeah. Well,
and we all swam in it.
yeah, I did a canoe trip from Valley Forge down to Manayunk
Uh-huh.
in 1972, and it was it was a mess. The one good area, although it smelled back then, was the Conshohocken sewer plant, because I believe it may have been the only one in existence.
It probably was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Bass?
So not from an interview perspective, but just of interest. In the time that you were, albeit not very long, but what is something that you learned in that time that was either surprising? I mean, you've made some comments now, but anything else that was just
About the,
what you learned, anything in that?
yeah, well, I got really lucky here, because I came on board at the same time that the current board put in place the new management. And the new management at the board, it's been great. So the current board management with Brent and Ed, they make our life easy. So they do a really good job. Fred, the engineer, he's really good. He's very open to questions, especially difficult questions. And so, being a board member, when you've got really good management, you can't ask for anything better than that. So they've made a lot of improvements, and they have proposed a lot of improvements, both that will make it more efficient, make it basically run better, as well as make it more safe. They've improved the performance of the employees from what I can see and what they report on. So that's the one thing I've seen, is I got really lucky to come in at this time. So.
George, if one of your neighbors asked you what to expect, being a first-time person that's volunteering to be on a board or committee for the Borough of Conshohocken, how do you think you would answer that from your point of view as being that?
What would you expect? Well, the one thing that I will say is, expect to be accepted, because this is, I've been parts of things in the past, either at work or, I was a member of the ISPE, which is an industry organization, and a lot of times they aren't accepting. This is a very accepting group. Okay, it's a very complimentary group. What I see here is it's a community, and if you're part of the community, you get accepted into this. The other thing is, and this is not meant to be a negative, but expect to do a lot of learning on your own, okay? Because I knew nothing about, I knew they existed, okay, sewer plants. I didn't know anything else about them. And everything I've learned, I have through Ed Mongan, the operations manager. He recommended myself and another new board member go to a PMAA meeting, all right, which was very informative. But for the most part, it's a lot of self-learning, right? So I would imagine you guys have the same issue when you're new here. So.
It is. It's a little shock to the system, yes.
Pardon me?
It's a little shock to the system, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Geez, there's so much to know and so much to learn.
Yes.
So,
yes.
With what I do, being a compliance person, training's a big deal. Maybe we could do some of that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any? Okay. Well, thank you, George, for coming in. Thank you for your service, and we appreciate it, and truly appreciate you wanting to do it again.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is under presentations. It is discuss the Borough Public Safety Initiative. If the emergency management team could come up to the podium and the table for their presentation.
I was going to say, there's more of them than us. Yeah. That's a good thing.
It is. It's a great thing. Don't be shy. Come on up. There we go. Well, good evening.
You really took me seriously when I asked you if I can go first next time, right?
You wanted to go first.
That's why I didn't think you were listening.
Yeah, we pay attention.
Well, I guess, we have a little agenda here. You gonna kick it off, Fred?
No, go ahead.
And I see you standing there.
Somebody's got to be there.
Yeah, go to sit with me.
Well, I'll just basically what the purpose of this is to have a discussion about the people who are the first responders, the emergency responders for the borough of Conshohocken. You see, you hear names, and I wanted to put some names to faces. These are the people who are going to not only handle emergencies in the town, but these initiatives that are put forward, these are the people who either implement them or they're their leaders who come up with them. Some of these are pretty extensive. Bill Walters, the detective, he's going to do his presentation. It's pretty extensive as to what Bill did in order to have his portion of this happen. We also have the two Narberth representatives, Bill and Bob Weber, brothers. We have Bobby Joe Merciades, who's going to present for emergency management, and Sergeant Dave Lennon for the police department, who's going to present for emergency management. Steve Young, who's going to present for the fire department. I'll do public services. Unfortunately, Frank Perry is sick. He couldn't make it. And then our borough manager will talk about some of the initiatives from the borough. But like George said, we'll kick it off with Chief Metz.
Okay, Chief Metz.
Good evening. Speaking for our little piece of the pie here, because we are a team. I'm going to touch on some things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Detective Walters so he can speak in detail on some of these things. But I just wanted to bring some things to your attention that we're doing that I've probably never talked about publicly. I might have mentioned them or something like that. And you're up to speed on what's going on and what we've been doing and what we will be doing in the future. So there's a task force. It's a DUI task force, and it's called the Valley Forge DUI Task Force. And it's funded by MAD. It's grant money from MAD, and we're a member of the task force, and we routinely do, it's run on our end by Sergeant Murray. It's administrated by a sergeant in West Norton, and together they come up with plans to do roving patrols and aggressive patrols and DUI checkpoints and stuff like that. This is something we've been doing for several years now, but lately in the last couple of years they've been funding these aggressive patrols. So the idea is, to make a presence, make violator contact, try to identify DUI drivers. That being said, we go out, as part of this task force, which is funded by grant money, which reimburses us for our time, and officers will go out and exclusively work traffic. That's what they do.
So when does that occur?
Well, they do it at all different times. They'll do it. They'll have daytime ones. They'll do them in the evening. They'll do them at night. When they do the DUI checkpoints, which they haven't done since COVID, but they're probably going to bring them back next year. Do it at night, obviously, and they strategically, place them, try and keep them secret. But it's different times. They do evening and night and daytime patrols, and the idea is just to send you out there to do, and you have to keep a log and present everything that you do, so that they're sure that you're, doing what you're getting paid and reimbursed for what they want you to do.
So George, I just want to understand this. So the officers that are a part of this go out and you're reimbursed for that. So that would be officers in addition to the officers that are on duty?
Right. So these guys they're supplementing patrol. They're not paying for us to replace officers on overtime. This is just for that. Okay. And Sergeant Murray does it, and when it's available and allocated, he gets these details together. And recently they just run quite a few of them. So it gives an opportunity to go out there and just work traffic. I know it's something that you all hear about, right?
Every day.
Right?
Yes.
So, and, we all do. So, it's being done, and we took advantage of this program to, to keep that going. And, like I said, when the DUI task force goes back to the checkpoints, that's a thing that it might be in Norristown, and next time it's in Conshohocken, and everybody comes together and works that. And we've hosted those here before, too. The other thing is, the things that we do regularly, like in the community, like the awareness type thing. And Bill has done this, I've done it. They just did a shredding event over the weekend. It's something that we try to do every year. And, we're available to do presentations to anybody that asks, And, I wish we would get more requests from the local groups. I do a couple a year myself that, are regularly, like the St. Matt's Church group, there's the seniors down there. I usually go talk to them once a year. But anybody that wants to, have someone come and do a presentation on anything, and we've done them on all different topics, gun safety, identity theft, anything. We can put something together and send them out there, and we do on a regular basis. And we also offer this active shooter training for groups or businesses, and awareness type training. We've done it here in the borough. We've done it in other places, to anyone who asks. I wish we would get more. I say it all the time, if you're ever talking to people that have businesses or church groups or anybody that wants to get a presentation together on that. I think it's really important. It's something that we're glad to do, and we're still involved in the schools. We're lucky.
I was just going to ask about that.
We only have the little ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier. We probably have the best school, with least amount of reports of anything in the whole school district, because they still like us when they're in third grade. They don't start fifth grade, they start not liking us. But, we still have a regular presence down there. We have a good relationship with the school district. And, we run some programs down there, and we stop in on a regular basis down there also. Proposal for the future is very technical. And it's what Detective Walter's going to speak to you about. And that's these latest technology in LPRs, they're called license plate readers. And Detective Walter and Detective Bond spend a lot of time looking into these things and speaking to representatives from the company and stuff like that, and putting together a plan to have them in place in the borough. And he can explain exactly what that means. And while he's here in front of you, I want him to speak about some of the things that he does beyond the scope of his regular duties as a detective here, and what that means to us and how we utilize that. And that is, he's a detective that is assigned to the ICAC, which is a task force that he'll explain. And he's also assigned to the Philadelphia office FBI task force for, what's the full name of it, Bill?
Child exploitation and human trafficking.
And I want him to, since he's in front of you, to explain to you what that means for us and him personally and what they do. Bill, take over.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening. In case anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Bill Walter. Like I said, I'm a detective with here in the police department. So I'm going to start with trying to explain kind of what automated license plate readers are, in case everyone's not aware of them. Basically, they're stationary license plates, stationary cameras that are placed throughout the borough that will read license plates at a constant 24/7. It can read them, and then it can alert us to specific things. Some of the things it can alert us to is like expired registrations, suspended registrations, no insurance, suspended drivers, missing or endangered individuals like suicidal subjects or missing children, Amber Alerts, sex offenders, stolen vehicles, and wanted people. That's just some of the list. I'm not going to go into all of them, but basically how it works is they're placed wherever they're decided that that we decide to put them, and the officer or our station, whoever, can sign on to this computer or database, and they sit somewhere and they can monitor the registration, or they're called hits. So if, say, someone that's wanted drives by one of these registration readers or license plate readers, they'll get an alert that this person was wanted, and then they can go get the vehicle, pull them over after verifying all the information first, and they can go from there and basically making an arrest, or we can use it as traffic enforcement or in criminal investigations. These are very beneficial for traffic enforcement. It improves productivity and efficiency. For an example, just if we're sitting on Fayette Street monitoring speed, we have to sit perpendicular to Fayette Street typically so that we can watch speed and time someone between two fixed objects. Mm-hmm. When you're doing that, you can't see all the registrations and stuff like that, so you can't run tags. Registrations. I may say tags also, but so you're kind of losing that extra knowledge that you're getting. So this kind of helps us run speed and also get all these extra violations that can increase traffic stops, which obviously is a deterrent for everyone seeing us. Also, they're very great for criminal investigations. I've used them several times. But so what you can use them for is you can run a full registration through this database and get the location, or if it ever hit one of these tag readers, you can get partial registrations to see if it was in there to learn information about a possible suspect. You can search color, make, model of the car, and then also what's called a hot list. So just some examples, like say we have a burglary or something in town, and we get a vehicle description, and we know a specific time that they hit doing the burglary. A lot of times without these tag readers, we're relying on just video or witness, which 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning you're not going to always get, or you're going to get very grainy video or something like that. So now this kind of increases our ability to solve these crimes, because we now have an extra step that we can take and check this tag reader to see if anyone hit during this time, and it gives us an investigative lead, so we can then hopefully make an arrest and get the victim some justice. Some of the examples, I've used it before in the past. We had a burglary at a business, and the suspect took a bunch of credit cards and went to the King of Prussia Mall and used them. Well, we had a picture of the suspect at the King of Prussia Mall, but we couldn't identify the female. So we actually able to follow her and see that she passed one of these tag readers in a certain location, and we were able to get the vehicle she was driving and then identify her that way. Without that tag reader and then doing that further investigation, the case would have went stale, and we wouldn't be able to make an arrest on a felony case and a burglary, and the victim would never got justice or restitution. So they're very beneficial in this kind of way, where we're able to connect it into multiple different jurisdictions where they also were burglarizing several schools and stuff like that. So it's, a lot of people don't realize, like, the vehicle is what helps us solve the crime, so it's not always, which we don't always get, if that makes sense. Another big thing that we can use them for is, I don't know if recently, just the chief was talking about, I'm on an ICAC task force, which is called Internet Crimes Against Children. So we combat child exploitation, anyone kind of victimizing children. More recently, the past couple of weeks, we did a proactive investigation where a couple undercovers were communicating with individuals on social media platforms, and we were able to get them to exchange enough where we had enough to make an arrest. So typically in those investigations, we want them to show up and meet us, and then we can arrest them. Well, a lot of times we're able to identify the person and see a registration on we're able to identify the person, and then we can get any vehicles that are registered to them. And from there, we can, with this database, we can enter their registration into this database, and it will alert them to them being in the area. So it's actually like having an extra officer right there watching for this person doing surveillance for us. It increases officer safety, knowing that the suspect's in the area. Because one of these individuals was actually in the area an hour beforehand and almost was able to get away, but we were able to follow up and get them. So it's very beneficial in investigations and, like I said, traffic enforcement, and even in community safety. So if, unfortunately, we're starting to see, not necessarily us, but different areas are seeing where we do a traffic stop, people refuse to stop and they take off in the vehicle. Well, our policies we're not going to pursue because we don't want to endanger someone and endanger the public. It's not worth the risk for traffic violations. So now we still feel obviously they need to be held accountable. Well, if we don't get the registration, they pass one of these license plate readers, it gives us the registration. We can try to identify the driver and go after them that way and still get them justice and hold them accountable for everything.
Bill, are these widely used in the state now?
They're getting very so they're actually older technology, but they're becoming more popular. A lot of places have them on, like on the actual police cars attached to them, but they're actually finding that they're more beneficial when they're posted in certain areas for stationary. So like, God forbid we ever had some mass incident, this will help you gain a suspect or know who's in the area at that time.
To speak to that point, Anita, once you're into this as a customer, so to speak, you have access to all of them. So Bill used Upper Marions to solve a crime that was committed here and help solve crimes that were committed in other jurisdictions. That's all linked, so they can look at ours, we can look at theirs. You know what I mean? So if there's a shooting in Norristown and they think the people fled, eastbound on Conshohocken Road and may have passed our cameras, Norristown could have access to that. So it's integrated in that way once you sign up.
Which it has benefit. I know an example that I'm not going to give out all the details because it wasn't ours, but a shooting did happen and the vehicle fled, and because of that partial registration that they had, a local department was able to get the suspect vehicle's description, and they were able to find out where they lived and get the person in custody for the shooting within an hour or two. It's very beneficial, like I said, and it helps with community safety and everything like that.
So how do you answer the question that Big Brother's always watching us then?
So, like I say, you're always going to get that. Obviously, one of the big things is we have to verify everything that's done on this. It's not something where we're alerted, we're getting every single tag that's coming to us. It's just alerts for, like I said, expired registration or something that's wanted or something like that. It's the same thing as us sitting in the middle of Fayette Street and running a registration. It just does it quicker and more efficiently because we don't have to type it all in. It's the exact same kind of concept. And do you have anything more to?
I would answer that question if somebody asked me that. You already are.
Yeah.
You already are being watched by maybe not so much Big Brother, but Big Brother will spend the time to kind of go root that information out from different sources. And the other thing with that is we could already do things like that nefariously. If you wanted to break rules and do things illegally, we have access to databases and stuff like that we can use that we have rules against. And it's the same thing with this. It's a lot of information it's capturing. It's not something they're going to spend a lot of time going through to see what somebody's up to. It's to help us solve crimes, And another thing that I talked to an area chief of police, and he said that they started noticing these wanted people, some of them for really serious crimes, and coming up on these cameras at multiple times at the same time every day. So they use that intelligence to just set up on it and wait for them to come by and grab some, bad dude that's wanted somewhere for murder or something. And, but yeah, we would use it as a legitimate law enforcement tool. another one in the toolbox to help us get our job done. And let's face it, everything, and he'll tell you, because, the job has passed me by from when I did investigations on a routine basis because of the technology. And, you have to keep up on it and see what's developing. And being in law enforcement and government, we always seem to be a few years behind everyone else, right? So we're constantly playing catch up. But these are the kind of things that, a progressive department needs to do, in my opinion.
So you talked a little bit about we could abuse technology today, and one of the questions that I have is the whole idea of abuse of technology, and how do you protect yourself as a borough from having that type of statement made about you?
So, in my opinion, we're when you run a registration on it's called a mobile data terminal, the MDT. There's a log of every single tag you run, everything like that. It's audited. It's the same thing with this database. If you run something like that, there's a log of this. It can go back based off of policies. Supervisors can check this. Everyone else can check this. So there's always that log of what's going on and go that way. The other thing I'll say is this also takes out some issues where there's been officers all over the United States that sometimes have purposely run registrations of their profiling or something like that. Well, this actually takes that out of the equation because it's running every single tag. Now the officer's not. The borough can actually come back and say, well, he wasn't profiling. This is the registration that's hitting on every single tag, instead of an officer picking and choosing which vehicle he's coming off or which vehicle he's running. So it's also got that liability that's helping you out with as well. If that makes sense.
So can I just...
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a policy on it yet, but it'd probably be a really good idea that we develop one. And I'm sure there's model policies out there regarding this. And it all, like Bill said, it all falls in line. We get, you can't mess around with these state databases. They know who you are, the codes you have to use to get on them, what legitimate use you have, a report assigned to it. And we do get audited. And the state police come down and they're like, let me see this, let me see that, let me see, where's this criminal history at? So-and-so officer at 1:30 a.m. ran this, this criminal history. Where is it? Right? It's serious business, and they take it seriously, and you'll lose privileges and stuff like that if you abuse that. And I've sat through them. Officer Bond, or Detective Bond usually does it now. He manages our clean system and all. But I've sat through them with the state police, and it's a lot of work, and it's it's not fun. And they demand that you toe the line, and this is no different.
That's great, and it's good, because that was my follow-up question, is just, will there be specific policies around it, not just for the use, but for who can access that information? So are there already guidelines out there that this may or may not be part of right-to-know requests? So they're the kinds of things that I think we really need to look at.
That is a very good question. I would think personal data is not, just common sense, but that's a very good question, and we'll find out.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not sure about right to know specifically, but usually, like the chief said, there's not, when you're having that personal information, you can't release it. But when this is actually doing the registration, it's also not getting any of the data of who owns the car or anything like that. It's just a picture of the tag, so it's like the public view of the tag. It doesn't have who owns it or who's the driver or anything like that. That's for the police to further investigate. So there's...
Great, thank you. Thank you for your patience for letting me ask all those questions.
No problem. So Tina kind of touched on this point before, discussing, as well as you, Chief, there are things that could be done outside the bounds of the law, but what I'm really concerned about is what could be done within the bounds of the law. So with this technology, without an active crime or search alert, my understanding is that it would be tag reading and registrations. And so my concern is that would disproportionately impact and cause major financial burden to people who already may be poor. The reason they couldn't get a registration is because they can't necessarily afford it. But more so, how is there a direct correlation between a car's registration and serious violent crime? So how would outside of a search, I'd be concerned on how this would be used other than just pulling people's tags and then, filing tickets.
Well, no, we don't plan on pulling people's tags and filing tickets like as traffic enforcement. Like, if you're thinking, like these cameras that capture someone going through a red light and
Right.
that's not the use of this at all. And legally, we're not even allowed to do that.
Okay.
This is an investigative tool that is capturing a tag at a moment in time by photograph and storing it, giving somebody like Bill, fine detective that he is, to go in there and search that database for a color car and passing at a certain time. Maybe there was 3 of them, but they'll get 3 tags, and then they can follow up on that. But as an enforcement tool for traffic, expired registrations, that's not the idea. That's not what this technology's for. It's not a red light camera.
Yeah, and that's my mistake. If you have an alert like that, the officer still has to go out and do the traffic stop, find the vehicle, and verify that the registration is actually suspended or expired. Has to actually go do the traffic stop themselves. We can't issue a citation based off this information. Like Chief said, that's actually illegal in Pennsylvania. We can't do that. Or not Pennsylvania, in boroughs.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Anyone else have any questions?
I'll talk real quick about so there are a couple task forces that I'm on. Is the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which is a countywide, it's actually a statewide task force of local law enforcement, county law enforcement, and state police. Then I'm also on the FBI's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force, and then also Montgomery County's Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force. Some of the major benefits, I would say, with all these is the experience that we get, and they offer tons of training, where I've learned a lot of computer forensics, technology-based forensics, which almost every criminal investigation involves cell phones or technology in some way. So it's actually helped increase this, which I can actually pass on to other officers. And they've given us, the FBI and Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force has actually donated a massive amount of equipment, I'll say, is computer forensic tools, computers,
Training.
yeah, lots of training. And then they also, just the connections you get. So, I mean, if we have anything, even if it's unrelated to child exploitation, we have contacts now with the FBI where if we get a bank robbery or a business is robbed, we can contact the FBI and have them assist us to now allow us to take these cases federal, and actually our department filing the charges instead of having to have a FBI agent come out and do it. And then also the reimbursement for any kind of investigation that's involving child exploitation or sex crimes or anything like that, we can now do this. Part of the Montgomery County Task Force is we're actually more proactive in trying to go after endangered children. So if we get a lot of runaway children, whether it's local or anywhere throughout the county, there's red flags that we look for to determine whether they're being trafficked by some adult or something like that. And unfortunately, there's plenty out there. So we help recover the children, find them, and then also try to interview them and see what's going on and why this keeps happening, and hopefully try to get anyone that's endangering these children and exploiting them. So that's kind of the main purposes of the various task forces. Any questions?
So if I'm understanding that, because you are part of some of these task forces, it gives our police department additional privileges?
It does. So I can now write federal search warrants and do federal indictments. As a detective here, I can actually do it in a federal court. So
It's a win-win situation with these, especially the FBI, because they really rely on local law enforcement for their mission, especially when it comes down to like the violent crime level or this kind of level, because it just expands their base, and then you get local cops that, I have a friend in Philadelphia that spent most of his career working on a FBI violent crime task force, and he was a street cop in Philadelphia. narcotics guy, a lot of experience. They brought him on there, and he's like this great resource for the FBI. The guy that's working next to him might be from Kansas, and it expands what they do and gives them a different kind of experience. And then that brings the resources of the federal government, which are beyond any police department, to us. And that's the deal. That's the change. I'll tell you, if I had a bigger department, I'd have more people on FBI task force and stuff like that, or U.S. Marshal task force and stuff, just for what it does for your department. You're not giving up anything, and they'll take you full time. Bill can't go full time because I need him here, but what the FBI brings to us, and what the ICAC and the county, and just the experience alone, and that what we're talking about that. Bill's a nice guy, and he's a good man. And he, several times a week probably removes himself from this world we live in into a really disgusting world. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But he does it. And all the partners he has. They do it on a routine basis.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
On that note.
Thank you, George.
I'm just going to bring it back real quick to the whole public safety initiative concept. So we've been building up to this moment over the course of the whole fiscal year. Last week, we had approximately a 3.5-hour meeting on the proposed budget. The initiatives that the chief and the detective have presented this evening were part of that budgetary discussion last Wednesday. Bill, you wrote a very comprehensive description for the cameras specifically. Can you just very briefly explain the proactive approach to your proposal as it pertains to the future of Conshohocken and what you think that this specific capital item will bring to the police force and why it's important?
So it's important for public safety based off of being able to assist in solving more crimes and, like I said, increasing traffic safety so that we can basically give victims justice and the justice they need. Since a lot of these cases may go stale, this will give us an extra tool to be able to do that and give us a better outcome for more victims in the future. That makes sense?
Yeah, and just from a proactive standpoint, we know the increase in population that's coming to the borough. So when we're looking for tools specifically to give our current people the ability to service that population that we currently have and what's coming, do you feel that the cameras are going to be an essential tool
Absolutely.
For that expansion?
Absolutely.
And any particular reason why?
I'll answer that. Here's a military term for you. It's a force multiplier. It's out there. It doesn't get cold. It doesn't get hungry. It doesn't get tired. It just sits out there and does its job. And when you're rested, fed, and ready to work, you can access it.
So once again, we're being presented, meaning the borough, from a financial perspective with a proactive proposal from the police department for us to fund for the safety of our community for now and moving forward. Correct?
Yes. And I would say that the detectives do a very good job when we get these crimes of property crimes mostly, where cars are broken into, things like that, especially when we get a string of them. They've been very successful in bringing prosecutions and making arrests. This is just going to make it better. And why not make this, we have a safe community, but why not send a message that, this isn't the place to come and mess around because you're not going to get away with it.
That's great. And I would hope that as we move forward in the budget process, that the residents are appreciative of that kind of proactive approach as opposed to the reactive approach of the police department.
Can I ask a question? Did we talk numbers like how many cameras? I can't remember.
Approximately looking at 23.
23. Thank you. I couldn't remember. Thanks.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And let's not forget one thing, too. I think we forget that we're a 1 square mile town, but 476, 76, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. All these, there's a reason why everybody wants to be here business-wise, resident-wise, and it could draw some attention from people that we really don't want to be here.
So that was a very proactive way to handle it, and I think the way administratively we're paying for it is rather unique, too. So with very little burden to the borough residents. So one thing I'm going to pay for dearly is the fact that I didn't introduce Deputy Chief Murphy. He's going to make a presentation with the Battalion Chief Steve Young. So I apologize for forgetting. Not that it will matter, but I apologize.
Can you hold up 1 second?
I think we have a question in the audience, perhaps about the police part.
I just want to say, that's a terrific idea. I mean, the cameras. If you have money in the budget, you should do them because it takes the human element out of it. As the chief said, they don't get hungry, the cameras, they don't get tired, It's a great idea because if I got caught, I don't have, he misread my this or he misread that. Because I've gotten tickets from the turnpike, from those cameras. You pay them. There's nothing you can do. You can't. So what the heck? And here in the borough, that would be a great idea to help slow down the traffic with Fayette and a couple of the other streets. So hopefully the residents are very appreciative of you guys going forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Ray.
So what are we doing? So,
Fire.
Dave, I want to talk about the fire department.
Okay. I guess the first item is we are slated in late spring, early summer of 2024 to receive a new pumper, and that'll be replacing a 2007 pumper that is reaching the end of its lifespan. The last apparatus that was replaced was the aerial by the Quint 2 years ago. So we are trying to maintain the replacement program that was put into place about 15 years ago. Along with that, 2 years ago we received 2 new boats. This year we will be receiving another new boat. When does that come in? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So it'll be operational before the cold weather really hits. This year we also received a high water vehicle, which is basically a retired military 5-ton. That's undergoing upfitting right now. That should be done in a few weeks as well, and that'll be fully operational. That allows us to make water crossings where it might be a little too risky for the boats. You risk damage to the boat motors, and it eliminates the need to put humans walking through the water. Previously, if you had shallow water, you had to walk people through it, and we have the training, but a lot of regular people aren't too keen on walking through moving water. So this is a way to move a bunch of people a lot quicker through moving water. Once it gets too deep for that high water vehicle, the previously mentioned boats go into action. In November, we are hosting an elevator rescue training that is a nationally recognized course. He's really highly in demand, and it's important in this borough because I don't know of many other suburban locations that have as many legitimate high-rise elevators as you do. It's pretty unique to this town. This course will offer an operations and technician level certification as far as the members want to proceed. And that involves entering elevator hoistways and securing elevator cars to remove occupants. Our high-rise firefighting training, again, I'm not aware of anybody else in this area that conducts as much of it as we do because they don't generally have the number of high-rises that we do. The other component to that is that these large apartment complexes that are continuing to be built, while not technically high-rises, the floor plans and the sizes of the building require a very similar response by the fire department. So those buildings have extra resources added to them on dispatch, and they utilize the same high-rise equipment that we carry for say, Asura West would also go into any one of those large complexes along the river. Steve, I think you cover the rest of it.
Okay, so some of the other prevention and public safety programs that the fire department engages in regularly include smoke detector giveaways. Not only do we have new buildings being built, new residences, but we also have older houses here that we make available to the residents to pick up or contact us, and myself, Chief Gunn, and some of the other staff, some of the volunteers, we'll set up appointments and come out and install those smoke detectors when we do go out there. We also, while going to some fire calls, we'll take notice in some of these older residents and speak with the residents and ask if they have a need for them, if we see it. And we've done a lot of installs that way, just from our fire calls and emergency responses. More and more fire prevention expos, getting our doors open, getting the community out to see what we're doing, the amount of effort that our volunteers are putting in, the sleepless nights, the no nights with no food. We've got 25 next door refreshing their CPR and first aid right now. The effort that's been going out there, just supporting that and getting the safety message out. It all starts with prevention. If we go to less fires, that's great. We're keeping up with the training, we're bringing programs in, we're keeping our equipment up, but it all starts with prevention and getting those messages out. And along with that, the community events, getting more sprinkler nights, getting the kids, getting the parents out, and it's actually helped with some volunteers. We've gained a couple volunteer applications that way. And again, myself, Chief Gunning, we're out. Fire safety speeches. Today was St. Matt's. We got the elementary school coming up. Constantly doing fire prevention, public safety style lectures and demonstrations as far as fire extinguishers, making sure smoke detectors are all in the same spots, the bedrooms are covered, that kind of stuff, making sure your exits are clear, your house is identified with address numbers. And then finally, the QRS service, which was a added service on the fire department, but it took advantage of staff that we already had in place, equipment that we had in place, just going to more calls to help supplement Narberth's response in town. It wasn't a replacement. It's not that it was a need for it, but it was just an additional service to make it better for our public.
Right, that's great. It really is great.
We can add, if there's any more questions, open up.
What? Go ahead. Do you do an actual smoke detector giveaway at the firehouse?
We have scheduled them with the open house. Right now, the procedure on the website, I believe, is to contact, and we'll take the information and go out. But anybody that can wants to stop by, we'll take the information and set up a time to do an install.
Okay, thank you.
When's Fire Prevention Week this year?
Next week.
Next week, very good.
Next week, and the fire safety presentation for the Colonial School District is going to be on Fayette Street, Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I thought it was the whole school district doing it here. It's a nice event when you have it. It really is.
Conshohocken's is usually the best.
Yeah.
Because it's on a main drag.
It is, and it's great.
It's usually the best at 10.
All the families come out, all the children come out, and they learn things despite themselves, honestly. They come out to bring their kids to see the fire trucks and the equipment, and they all learn. I know I learn every time I go. I'm not walking through the smoke-filled room anymore and crawling on the floor, though. Once was good. That was did you do that, Tina?
I did not. I walked upstairs. I just want to commend the fire departments together and Conshohocken Fire Department, both paid and volunteers. I think what we're seeing is that the strategic planning from a public safety perspective at that next level, which is really where we need to see it. And what I would ask is, and I'm sure that you've already talked about this, we're a little bit ahead of the curve with some of this stuff. What's the next thing as we start thinking about, what the community is going to look like in 24 months? What's the next thing that we should be really starting to think about as the leaders of our community?
There's a very real possibility you're going to have to look at 24-hour staffing for the fire department. The increase in population and the demands that come with those buildings, your volunteers are out the door about 600 times a year as it stands. These large buildings present their own challenges regarding gas leaks, automatic alarms, elevator alarms. There's a whole host that goes with that. And the issue becomes that you just need people to cover that time, because most of our volunteers don't work in town. They live here and then they work elsewhere. So during the day or on the overnights, I'll be honest with you, Hurricane Ida, we operated from 4 p.m. and they kept going through the next day. At 5:30 a.m., I hopped off a boat and I had to go for a Department of Health inspection at work. And that happens to our volunteers fairly regularly, where they have to run home, change, and go straight to work. If the call volume increases, that's a very real possibility that you're going to have to look into 24-hour staffing. We're not there yet, and that's a ways off, but it's not over the horizon.
Thank you.
I think to add on to the Deputy Chief's statement, the biggest thing is, and continue to combine our response side with our prevention, inspections, working good with codes to make sure the buildings are built properly, reducing the false alarms, working with management, working with emergency management, and again, echoing off of, we're one big team.
Right.
Working with the building managements to reduce the false alarms, getting the residents to understand what's an emergency, what's not, and continuing to work at a high level with the training for the volunteers to be as efficient as we can while maintaining up-to-date equipment and giving them the best tools for what we have in town and grow with it.
To piggyback onto that, the fact that our career staff do building inspections, they do fire inspections and UNO. Most of the paid firefighters in this area do not do that. So your fire department as a whole has a much better picture of what the buildings in their local look like, what the challenges are, which buildings are what we refer to as DNEs, where we wouldn't go with an interior operation if it caught fire. That's another thing that's actually kind of unique to Conshohocken, is that even the volunteers are pretty aware of what's in town. Elsewhere, the municipality handles all the inspections and the firefighters are just detailed to those stations.
Communications.
There's a break in that communication, and Conshohocken is certainly ahead of the curve on making sure that everybody in the fire department is well aware of what we have going on in our own local. And we need to continue that trend, and in any way we can improve that will only benefit everyone in this town.
In regards to the handout that you just had mailed out, have you had any responses from it yet?
I don't know if there's anything directly from that yet. That just went out. So we'll get data back on that within the next month or so.
Okay.
From the outfit that does that.
Do you also try and recruit junior firefighters?
We do. So Conshohocken is actually part of a colonial task force that is specifically geared towards recruiting junior firefighters from the Colonial School District. To put that into perspective, right now, I don't know of any chief officers within the Colonial area that didn't start before they were 18. So the younger you are when you start, the more likely you are to stick with it. In general, the better firefighters start younger. So it is in our interest to recruit young people. The most important job I have as a fire officer is to make sure that the people coming up behind me know what they're doing. And if I learn something the hard way, maybe they can learn it the easy way. If I don't do that, then whoever replaces me is going to undo everything I did. And that's the truth of running organizations, no matter what they are. So we take our leadership very seriously. We have good leadership, and we're trying to foster that. And the sooner we can get to new members and the younger we can get to them, to get them involved and a good understanding of how it all works, again, only a benefit to the community. So that is a never-ending effort, to be honest with you.
Do you get many junior firefighters? Like, has that increased also?
No, we don't. I think that might be part of kind of the cyclical nature of, I feel like in my early 20s in Conshohocken there weren't a lot of young kids. Now I'm seeing a lot of young kids.
Yes.
As opposed to the 90s, there were a lot of us.
Right.
So
There was a lull.
yeah, there was definitely a lull, and the fire department saw that as well. So part of this initiative with the colonial companies is to fill that gap, because it's not just us, it's also Plymouth and White Marsh Township that are seeing the same thing. And you're, honestly, with volunteer fire departments, you don't have the family dynamics that you did in past years.
Right.
There-
Are there any programs at the tech school for?
There is a public safety program at the tech school. It covers police, fire, and EMS.
Thanks.
Thank you. For the overall public safety initiative from a fire perspective, you will be discussing and evaluating 24-hour staffing, which you did mention, and then will you be, as a department, assessing any facility needs as we move forward over the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years, and be presenting it back to council as needed?
I would say that would be on an as-needed basis,
Okay.
but that will be up for constant evaluation.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the next presenter was supposed to be Frank Perry again. He's sick. I'm just going to go over some of the public service initiatives real quick. So with public services, the LED lighting that you see throughout the town, that's going to be actually increased. We're looking for areas now to increase the lighting to ensure a little more public safety. With crowd barriers, I think they've worked out extremely well for the borough, for the major events and even the smaller events. We have Public Services has a systematic way to put these out now, and you'll notice that when we do have an event, that 24 hours later, it doesn't look like there was an event, and that's an accomplishment in itself. Line painting, you're seeing that more throughout the town since we switched our initiative away from more trash. You're going to see more line painting. The problem with line painting right now is that the paint is extremely expensive. Everything is extremely expensive, but the borough's catching up to where they want to be. The problem with some of it also is the fact that every time lines get painted, Pico, Aqua, or somebody comes in and destroys the entire road, and you have to do it again. So that's a good and a bad. Everything that Pico and Aqua are doing is going to last 100 years, supposedly, so you're not going to have to worry about it. But the bad part is that you have those broken up lines. But I think next summer it's going to be much better. From the emergency response portion, which now Public Services is a big part of, they're trained in removal of debris. They're going to go to training classes to know what they can and can't do, what they are and aren't supposed to do. We've had our education from the last flood. When we sat and talked to FEMA, they were measuring things by how tall is the guy standing next to the pile of debris. That's how they determined what kind of money you were going to get back or what the size of the debris pile was. So it was rather unique. Now they're offering classes for Public Services, and we're going to be sending our people there. I talked about the flooding events, snow, which we have not had a big snow event in a long time. We'll see what happens. Traffic control, there's several different things that have been out there for a long time that have been delayed, stopped, and they're now coming back because of COVID. You'll see the new traffic lights that are going to be put on Fayette Street, and all the signs will be replaced, stop signs. PennDOT is kind of fluctuating back and forth on letting us use LED outline traffic lights, which might help with some of those areas that traffic signs are difficult to see, stop sign. But if we're able to, we're going to use them. And another big thing that's happening a lot, and I don't know why, but damaged tree and tree removal, we have a lot of it going on, but we did get the grant for the chipper and things like that, which helped. Last week, we had a tree fall in the middle of Kala Lane that took both lanes down. Luckily, it was a day that everybody was doing trash pickup, so at 1 o'clock we had 15 people do the removal, and it was removed within an hour and 15 minutes completely, and the road was reopened. So that worked out really well. And again, they're evaluating everything right now, so we know we don't have to be told the condition of the streets. It's very clear what the condition of the streets is. Combination of the streets are old and and the infrastructure is old. But again, the work that Aqua and Pico are doing, that's new work. It's new work that's being attached to old work. So it really accentuates the fact that these portions of the road are not great. But we do have a plan, and we did have a plan. That plan changed, and now we're going with the new plan. It just will take a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Narberth Ambulance, and the two Webbers, Bill and Bob, will be presenting.
Good evening, Bill and Bob.
It's like a podcast.
It is.
It's the Bob and Bill Show.
Thank you for having us. Hello, how are you tonight? I just wanted to say thank you for having us tonight. We're happy to be here and be part of this program. One of your questions is what's the next thing that you're going to do and how are you going to stay ahead of the curve? Well, the first thing you did was you created this emergency management team that has been a privilege to be part of. We meet on a regular basis. We discuss every aspect of emergency management that happens inside the borough, which helps us as Narberth Ambulance as an organization that has to staff what goes on with these trucks and how we can budget different things or different programs or things that we can do or need to do inside the borough. So by creating that emergency management team, you really actually did put everything in the right place, and it helps us as an organization. Just some of the programs that we participate in here is a Stop the Bleed program. We taught all the police officers, all of the employees of the borough. Maybe some of you have come to it, I'm not really exactly sure. We CPR, first aid, AED training, we've done that throughout the borough with all the employees. We also participate in a Narcan Leave Behind program. As you all know, there's a ton of opiate overdoses. It's a program that was created through the county that allows us, when we interact with somebody who has overdosed on an opiate, that a lot of them just will refuse treatment, and which is totally the wrong thing to do. What we're able to do is we're able to leave some Narcan behind for them and help and teach others who may be with them how to help them if they end up overdosing again through that initial contact that we had with them. We have been doing blood pressures. We do them every year at the community center and a couple of other different places. Generally, that's in May, which is during EMS week. We participate in all of the major events that happen inside the borough, with any basic event, the St. Patty's Day Parade, the Fun Fest, things like that. So we're just really happy to be here and be part of the program and be part of such a wonderful emergency management team. If I can just add a few things. The QRS, obviously you know a lot about that. We've started that up, but in the past maybe 3 months that it's been active, the participation that we get from the fire department is unbelievable. We have had, when they were on the initial dispatch, it's what makes the world of difference. Prior to that, a cardiac arrest or a priority 1 call was always a dispatch from the fire department.
But these now, we had a situation up the street with a seizure patient, and we were on scene for 45 minutes. And the fire department was very critical in getting us that. So that QRS, the way that we have gelled and molded into that is phenomenal.
That's great.
I think it really unique, and I hope you understand what I say in this. Really unique thing that Bob and I contribute to this whole thing is, first, we're volunteers, but second is we were born and raised in Narberth. And we understand what that small town means. Narberth is 1 square mile. Our entire family was in the public service, all as volunteers. But to work with each entity, police, fire, public works, in such a small town, it takes a little bit, and it's great. And it's amazing how we can do that, and I hope that you take that as a huge benefit, that you have that knowledge. What you were saying about what in the future, probably some type of crew, additional crews are probably going to be one of those things. Mutual aid to us is where we go out of town because of mutual aid. And recently I've noticed more and more where we're doing that. So having a QRS behind is always good. We always have another truck that follows up right behind. When our truck goes out, the truck in the main station follows right up behind it. So it can quickly get into a scene.
What we do as a cover, we cover ourselves actually, is when the Conshohocken crew goes out, there's a crew that comes from the main station. Generally, there's just one crew here, and there's 2 crews at the main station, which is in Ardmore. And what they do is we call it floating, and then they float towards the West Conshohocken area, and they backfill anything that happens here. The same thing happens in reverse when at night, Lower Merion is a little bit of a unique place in the way that we have incidents that happen down there. The next closest person that backs up somebody for something that happens in Narberth Borough, which is almost one of our furthest points, would come out of Conshohocken or Upper Merion or something like that. We do border the city, but the city doesn't come into Montgomery County. So we do cover ourselves in the way that we do it, and that was the program that we do here. So we try to always make sure that if an ambulance is called here in Conshohocken Borough, that it's a Narberth ambulance that's showing up, because we're trained all under the same program. We see the same medical direction and things like that. So we want to make sure that you get the best quality care that you can get.
Just a few weeks ago, we had 3 ambulances in town. It was a call after a call, and the whole system of following up there, or the floating, worked out very well.
That's great.
May I ask why your badge is covered?
Unfortunately, there was a paramedic lieutenant in New York City that was murdered while she was at work. And I just wanted to show my support for her.
He didn't give me a badge. I left it at home.
It's okay.
Well, you might be called Narberth Ambulance, but I think I speak for everyone. You are a part of the Conshohocken community, and we are very grateful to have that and to continue to support it.
We appreciate it.
The borough here, which you may not know, is one of the biggest supporters of Narberth Ambulance. And again, I just want to thank you for that.
It's our thank you for what you do for us, honestly, and how everyone works together. It's just wonderful to see. It really is. It should be reassuring to all of our residents to have the understanding of how everyone, like Narberth and the firehouse and the police department and the borough workers, how they all interact and gel now, because I can speak, and I'm sure Tina and Anita, everyone that's been here for a while, we watched this happen. It wasn't here when we started, and it's just wonderful to see. It really is, just the change.
You forgot the fire police. They belong in there too.
Yes. Well, when I say fire department, I include them in that. I
Perfect.
would never ignore them, so.
Those things work because of the meetings that we constantly have, and the get-togethers and pre-planning. I mean, that's how all those things work.
Right.
You don't just walk up to a scene one day and say, "Who are you?"
Right.
We all know everybody, and that's
Right.
the beauty of it.
Right.
And it wasn't like this when I started.
This most certainly was not like this.
I have gradually seen it, and it's a good feeling to know that.
It's wonderful, yeah.
Again, I don't want to say anything bad about any other coverage area that we go into, but this is the best place to come to. It really is, and it's all because of that. It's because
Right.
when you walk up, I know everybody that's there, and it makes the job 100 times easier. So when you have a question and you want to ask, or you need something, I already know who to go to, and that's how it smooths the path very quickly. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming in and your service.
No, I think I can speak for myself. Thanks, Ray. I'm going to hit Borough of Conshohocken quickly. In terms of overall public safety, I think it's pretty clear from the presentations you've heard so far tonight that the borough has made a strategic and significant investment into public safety, health, and well-being. If you look at what was presented to you in your 2023 capital budget, you're looking at just solely in the public safety realm over $2 million of an investment moving into 2023. Some specific items to highlight are the Green Light Go grant program through PennDOT. So that is for increased safety and mobility along West Elm at the intersections of Caldwell, Maple, Harry, and Oak, with the hope that that technology will relieve the congestion and traffic flow, as well as keep people moving safely and efficiently. And again, there is a grant match to that, but the majority of those dollars will be grant dollars, approximately $1.5 million, with a grant match of approximately $377,000. The ARLE mast arms that will be installed at 7 and 4th. So this is a continuation of a grant that was received in 2019. It was delayed due to COVID, so we're circling back to that. You'll actually see an advertisement that's going out shortly, and it'll be on your agenda to approve bid, hopefully, before the end of 2023. This is a pedestrian safety improvement project. It's, again, along Fayette Street. You're going to see pedestrian crossing mast arms with flashing beacons going up at 7th and 4th. Again, the majority of that project is being funded through grant dollars in the amount of $348,000. Our match of that is $26,000 plus anything that's over the cost of that $348,000. So again, you've budgeted that amount in your 2023 budget. We think that the pocket parks fits into your overall concept of public safety, and that you're really looking at your Main Street corridor. And if you're looking at safety along high traffic areas, the pocket parks add this sort of pedestrian passive recreation opportunity, and just little pockets where pedestrian walkability is potentially safer along those corridors. So as you move into your Main Street overlay with your task force into 2023, you are also funding and developing the concept of pocket parks along that corridor. So in 2023, you'll be looking at Fritz Lodge and Santander Bank, and then we've already presented publicly to you on the potential for one at 2nd Avenue and how that will reconfigure traffic from a safety perspective. The Wyman Pocket Park, which will be in your highly developed riverfront area, leading to your Main Street corridor, and then the additional potential for 2 other open space opportunities that are in the pipeline, and if they come to fruition, again, will be presented. But all, again, when you're looking from a public safety perspective, open space, recreation, passive recreation are all important pivotal factors to consider. Cameras, they were presented to you in your 2023 budget. We all know that the purpose of those is really to deter theft, vandalism, other acts of violence. These are in addition to the traffic cameras that were presented by the police department. So these are on public facilities, public parks. We have had some instances of vandalism and other acts of violence. So the cameras have been shown to deter theft. They're an extra set of eyes for our police force and our public safety team. And it's to assist the law enforcement and officials to identify responsible parties should a crime occur. We're lucky enough that we live in an environment that we have a very low crime rate, and we'd like to keep it that way. And you're making the financial investment in order to reach that goal of approximately $20,000. And then the last thing I have on there is traffic patterns. So we're looking at innovative ways to address traffic and safety. So you saw the new traffic pattern that is not finalized but will be finalized in terms of the 2 left turn lanes from the bridge onto Elm. We have specifically met with our traffic engineer and PennDOT and other resources, SEPTA, et cetera, to talk about other potential items that we could look at, such as traffic calming improvements in the area of Corson Street along West Elm, the road diet concept, an initiative that again is going to be presented to you publicly by your traffic engineer on the 2nd. We have built funds into the 2023 budget from a matching perspective should you receive a grant, which would need to be in the range of about 1.3 to 1.5 million. Again, that initiative, if it's something we want to look at moving forward from, again, a pedestrian safety perspective, we would not do unless it was funded by a grant, which is a big potential because PennDOT is supportive of the concept. But Brian Keaveney, your traffic engineer, will discuss that in more detail next in November. The Oak Street crossing is a big deal in terms of traffic patterns and safety in the borough and the future of what's coming. And then we've also discussed the potential of the Conshohocken shuttle and what that will mean for the businesses and the residents moving forward in terms of presenting an alternative mode of transportation. And again, that's altogether around a $500,000 range in terms of investment. So bottom line is, from the borough, you have made the financial investment up into this point when it comes to public safety, and clearly you are continuing to make that a priority moving into your 2023 budget. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you. So the last one will be emergency management, and Bob will be emergency auditing, and Borough management will be presenting.
All right. Good evening. I'd just like to reiterate the sentiment that Bob and Bill had about the emergency management initiative. I've been here for a long time, and it's really refreshing to see the borough engage in this type of collaboration between all these different departments. It's really refreshing. For our public safety initiatives, everyone's seen our new EOC, how wonderful it is. Our final initiative for this year is a radio console for our EOC. I spoke about this briefly at our last meeting. If you look at every major after-action report, interoperability is the #1 reason incident response fails. So the inability for first responders to communicate. This will give us the ability to dispatch during priority traffic events. I spoke about this the other night. When the county gets overwhelmed with calls and incidents, they don't dispatch calls, they just push them out over the computer-aided dispatch. So what this will do is this will give us the ability in-house to actually dispatch. It'll also give us the ability to maintain independent control over small and large-scale incidents in-house. So we'll be able to do that all right here. Currently, we have that ability through mobile and portable radios only. The reality of it is I have antennas magnetized in the ceiling, so really not the best system for reliability. This is a computer-based radio system. It'll give us the ability to talk and listen to multiple radio channels and talk groups. This will replace up to 8 separate radios. So we'll have all this in one console. It'll give us the ability to talk over 800 megahertz radio, which is our fire and police. It'll give us the ability to talk over VHF, which is what we refer to here as our local channel. That's our public works, our fire, and our police. And it'll also give us the ability to talk over UHF, which will give us the ability to talk to our neighbors in Plymouth, which we currently don't have that ability to do. One of the most interesting parts of this radio console feature is the fact that it's pushing all this to a computer-based program. So we'll be able to load this software onto a laptop, and we'll be able to bring it out into the field, and we'll be able to run our dispatch right from that laptop. So if anybody saw this setup we had down for fireworks, this summer it was kind of Bobby Joe and I sitting there with a couple portable radios, some mobile radios, those same magnet antennas. You know, we're trying to listen to this and that. So we'll be able to do all that through a laptop computer. So it's really where we need to be. The next initiative is the community water distribution. This was a program started by emergency management where fire, police, EMS, and public works distribute water during certain days. The county has code red days, which are high heat advisory days. So when we have those days, we get some coolers out and we stop and talk to people. I know from the police department perspective, it's a great, stop and talk initiative. Sometimes it's, we don't get to talk to people as much as we do, and it's a chance to get out there and meet some new people. Let's see. You want to talk about I'm sorry. We have the evacuation signage. Evacuation signage was an initiative we came up with when we were talking about development of the riverfront. How do we tell these people, number one, that there's an incident going on, and then number two, what do we tell them? So one of the thought processes here was that we need some evacuation signage. So we came up with a map and a plan on where to tell people to go. So this is signage to tell people how to move from the waterfront out of the area and then out of the borough. There's also general signage for the rest of the community in case of some sort of emergency that they can be directed without any technology, just the good old-fashioned signage.
Okay. The floodgates on Caldwell Lane, if you're familiar with Conshohocken Road, there's floodgates that go down where the train bridge is. We're putting those in on Caldwell Lane. Every time we have an incident on Caldwell Lane, it's usually quick, and we have to get public works out or somebody to barricade it or have a police car stay there. Now we'll have a gate that will come down and shut that road off, and it's lit. It has an extension on it. We've had it here for about a year, but again, COVID, and somebody bought a property that was where we were supposed to put one, so we had to maneuver it. And the first one will be going up, I think, by the beginning of next week, and that'll be on the Caldwell and West Elm Street side. And then the other one will be up around Fifth Avenue with the baseball academy.
Yeah.
Baseball academy. So that should be in by April or so, the 2nd. You want to name your
Sure. So, as you know, we have a UAS drone unit. We started this unit about a year ago. It's been very successful so far. We have 5 FAA certified UAV pilots. We have 4 more coming online after this weekend. We're doing some training right now. Currently, we have 3 UAVs. 2 of them have zoom, 1 of them has zoom and thermal capabilities, and 1 of them is what they call a FPV, which is a first-person view. The FPV is where we wear a set of goggles, and it's helpful for flying indoors. When we're done here, I'll show you a video of a training that we did the other night at the elementary school using this first-person view drone. To date, we've flown 6 scheduled missions. We've had 4 scheduled trainings, and we've had several unscheduled missions relating to other incidents. We have the ability to just walk right up on our roof here and fly right from our roof, which is very convenient. We have the ability to pick up and go wherever we need to go. We've done some testing where we've gotten a fire call and we've had personnel here in the building and see how fast we can get out. And we've actually been able to deploy and watch the fire truck leave the fire station, follow them to the call, do some rotations around the incident, and record that. So it's going to be useful for us in the future, for sure. For 2023, we already have 6 scheduled missions, so there are scheduled events. You'll see us there. We're using that as a security feature for the event, and just to give us an overall view of what's going on during the event. Most importantly, recently we joined the county UAV working group, which is a group of 14 departments throughout the Montgomery County, not all police departments, some of them are EMS, and it's a working group which has helped us develop policy and procedure and make some contacts with other departments that are using UAVs and help us out with that. Through the county and through this working group, we have the ability to have access to drone sense software, which saved the borough probably over $100,000. So it's a software program that the county bought. The major advantages for us here is that we can live stream any picture that we have from our UAV. So we can live stream to our EOC, we can live stream to if we set up at a scene, and we can also send a link to live stream to any mobile device. So it's really beneficial. One of the other features is we can track our multiple drones. So if we have our drones in the air and we're here at our EOC, we'll be able to pull up the software and we'll be able to see where they are. We'll be able to see some data information about the drone and what's going on with that. So it's really beneficial for us to be able to get on that county program and save the borough a lot of money and still maintain our independence in the operations that we do here. I think to answer your question, Tina, if we were talking about what the future holds, for me, I think in emergency management, I think it would be the advancement of our personnel through training of scaled exercises. So now that we're at a point where we have a lot of the equipment that we kind of were looking for in the beginning, we can really focus on scaling that training up to meet the demands of what our reality-based incidents are. So flooding, issues with the bridge or traffic and things of those nature. So mechanically about 6 miles. By law, it's line of sight. So on the top of our building, like 6 miles. Yeah, we can really go far. It's amazing.
It was used at fireworks, correct?
We used we had both at the fireworks. We had them up, and we had a great video of our fireworks with fireworks in Philadelphia along the riverfront in the background. So
we also used that opportunity when we were at the fireworks to utilize our drone. We were showing the images on the TV screens in which the crowd was also able to view, and we interacted with the kids there and showing them just what we do with the drones and how we can utilize them. So it was a great learning tool and learning opportunity for our residents and the children.
So you talked about in total you'll have 9 certified pilots. So these aren't toy drones that you just pick up a remote control and shoot it around to look at things.
No.
They're
It's a vigorous training that they go through. So it's 4 days worth of 8 hours that they go through with an amazing instructor actually that we hire through the borough. And not just that, but then they have to put those skills to test and utilize their skills flying and practice flying, getting their hours in. And then they have to pass an FAA 107 test. So you're actually following the FAA rules and regulations and guidelines. So it's pretty strict, and you have to follow the book with them.
And who makes up that number of 9 people? We're looking at 5-6 different groups that make up the EOC. So tell us who makes up our pilots.
So right now we have just jumping right in. So excited. So right now it's made up of our fire department. We have 2 members from our fire department. We have 2 members now from our police department. We have an emergency management personnel on there. We have, am I forgetting? Oh, EMS. We have Bob Weber is in training now. I'm sorry, we have 2 emergency management personnel. So each department is covered in the scope of training and or already certified.
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
So this video, one of our police department pilots is also a member of the SWAT team. So he went through training through the SWAT team through our same instructor, but under the guise of the SWAT team. And they're more focused on being able to fly into buildings. So this is a video that we did the other night down at the elementary school, and it stands kind of to the testament of what our capabilities are.
We don't always fly to the music. Just so you know.
What are the lifetimes of these drones?
As you know, technology is always evolving. As far as what we have, it's the latest and most current. I project that we'll have these for several years if we can keep them in the air.
Several, close to 5 or 2?
I would hope that we would phase in, as everything else, we would phase in new ones and we would phase out old ones.
Okay.
We're new and we're not really sure how long the manufacturers support that software with that vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
So the person that's operating this right now, where were they located?
He was in the lobby at the school, and really our only limitation was the construction of the building being a cinder block building. So once we got to the second floor, we were losing a little bit of signal. But for a construction like this, it's pretty impressive.
This is the FPV drone that they're flying through with. This
Is
drone
this the one with
with
the
the goggles.
goggles?
This drone is made for smaller spaces, being indoors. Its hardware and software holds up, as David mentioned, within the concrete walls. So this is a drone that is meant to be flown indoors for these types of missions.
And God forbid there was ever an active shooter situation at the school. This is an example of a scenario where the drone would be utilized in this capacity.
Tina and I were just talking about that.
If you're familiar with the school, this is the cafeteria. This is the most impressive part. So you have this drone flying in there, and when you in the back of the kitchen, and then that's the other one in the back. So we have 2 drones in that narrow area flying around.
And who's flying the other one?
What's that?
Who's flying the other drone?
The other pilot.
One of our
Calvin Perlman from the fire department.
Do these run silent when they run? Or
I wouldn't say so.
I didn't know if that
They
was
have a
something. Yeah.
They hum?
Very cool.
Do they hum?
They move, we have them move all their papers off their desks because they would blow the paper.
That was way cool.
Dave,
As far as the cost, so 3 years ago, a normal drone for a police department like Borough, who purchased these a little earlier than us, their first drone they paid $35,000. So that drone that you see there was about $1,000. And the most expensive one we have with thermal imaging is around the $6,000 to $7,000 range. And they all come down in price, and it really is beneficial. You have to fly these generally like a mission, you have to fly 2 at a time. So The only thing that these do not have capability of is to fly during rain. There are drones that just came out, and we will be looking at that in the future, that you can fly in the rain.
So we talked a lot about the proactive decisions by the different departments in terms of the public safety initiative that we put in place. Can you kind of briefly talk about where we are in terms of our utilization of drones and where that places us in terms of Montgomery County, in terms of our proactive approach to public safety and what we can now offer the community by having not only the drones themselves, but 9 trained drone operators?
I would say we're cutting edge for where we are with our drone program. As I spoke earlier, there's 14 jurisdictions within this working group in the county, and not all of them are police departments. I would use Lower Merion and Upper Merion both as examples of departments that started a drone program. Lower Merion has less than 6 pilots, and Upper Merion has 4 pilots. And a drone that's out of date with 1 drone. So with our equipment now and the number of operators that we have span throughout the different disciplines within the borough, I would say that we're by far ahead of anyone.
And you've been a police officer for how many years?
22.
22 years. And as someone who would be running into that building to stop an active shooter or entering a rooftop to stop an active shooter, what does the borough having drones mean to you?
Like I started off with, it's really refreshing to see the council this engaged in supporting us in our missions and what we need to do. I mean, as Steph was alluding to, obviously this is, a time saver and possibly a lifesaver, for a fraction of an investment. I mean, it's to me, it's very important, and Bobby Joe's excitement in the program and the rest of the pilots that are with us. I mean, we share that same excitement, and we're just happy to be supported, and it's the next step, and it's where we need to be right now.
For this program requires some commitment. Those videos were shot from 11:30 at night. I left at 11:30. They were probably there till 1 o'clock in the morning. So they're committed to it. They like it, and same with the fire department. Those people are committed to it, and that's why it works. Okay.
So next we have.
The flood gauge, I'll just go over the flood gauge real quick. That was something that we did with the U.S. Geological Association. That's part of our budget for 2023. And it was discussed because of bad information that we were getting during the last flood. It was inaccurate. It was bad across the board. So we did reach out to the U.S. Geological Association. They met with us twice. We met with Lower Merion Township, White Marsh Township to discuss it. And the group from the Geological Association is very committed to this. They are all about it, and I think it's going to be helpful in the future of the borough. One of the big things that will come from it is the mapping that it allows. You'll eventually have an app on your phone, and the app on your phone will show you where the water will rise depending on the height of the river onto the roadway. So it goes halfway up Washington Street. It will actually indicate that on an aerial map where the water will end. It gives you the great idea of where you need the stage, where you need to put your equipment. So that works out real well. And then the 3-stage emergency, the phase emergency plan, I'll go over that real quick too. Mainly for the residents that we're going to have along the road. We developed a plan to try to notify them quicker and come up with a plan to have them leave at a certain point. We have plans to where they can take their cars. We've made arrangements with Conselli, Honda. We've made arrangements with the Amerisource Bergen building where cars could be parked temporarily if there was a flood. We had those 300 cars or so flooded out during the last storm. location for their cars. They can go to a parking area and park there for 24 to 72 hours while the flood goes up and goes down. And a big part of that notification is going to be what Bobby Joe will talk about.
Thank you. So for the rest of the evening here, I'll be talking about our Code Red services, emergency preparedness, CPR, first aid, and our AED updates. So first on the list is the Code Red. As you know, the Borough of Conshohocken utilizes Code Red, which is an emergency alert notification system that disseminates important information related to emergency and non-emergency incidents. The system is capable of reaching a multitude of users within minutes via phone, text, email, and we do highly encourage you to reach out to residents, businesses, and anybody working within the borough to register for Code Red. If anybody needs assistance, please ask them to contact us. One of our team members here will be happy to walk them through it. Some additional features coming along, and that'll be coming up soon for Code Red, is a text to keyword. This feature allows residents to quickly subscribe to an event-specific alerts by texting a customized keyword to a short code. By providing this easy way to opt in, this allows our public safety officials to increase their community outreach and update residents with important information and instructions. So an example would be, should we have a flood, we would put it out, please text flood to this number, and then from that point on, until the flooding event is done, they will receive notifications specific to the flood and what to do. The second feature that's coming out and that it's in the works is the foreign language message translation. This program supports voice and text fonts in 3 different languages, providing a broader reach for diverse communities. So that'll be an additional feature, which is great to have. Next is our emergency preparedness guide and community training. I've kind of lumped these two together. We've developed a resident preparedness guide for emergencies, and this guide creates an overview on preparing for disasters, creating a basic plan, and creating a disaster supply kit. The guide is available on our website, and we also have a few copies here tonight, so it's a standard guide. It runs through everything. It has everything they could possibly need in there. In addition to the preparedness guide, we've also begun setting up a booth at our community events that has a learning station that shows emergency preparedness videos for residents of all ages to enjoy. One little boy stood in front of the TV. I couldn't even tell you for how long, watching these videos, learning all about flooding and how it floods and how the just flows through the earth, and it was quite enjoyable to watch him.
We gave him a fire company application.
Also at these events, we do hand out emergency management bags that has some tchotchkes in it, which is great, some coloring books that pertain to all of our departments, so that they're getting resources for each department. September is National Preparedness Month, so we are hoping to maybe amp up something for next year with this program. Last service we'll talk about is the CPR, first aid, and AED training. Emergency training, you heard from our Narberth ambulance and our fire department that, emergency training from a CPR, first aid, and AED class prepares our teams with the knowledge and skills they need to recognize and respond appropriately during a natural disaster or major incident. All of the borough employees are currently certified in these areas. In addition, we have 4 certified instructors amongst our team members. And coming soon with that, all of Borough Council and our boards and commission members will have the opportunity to become certified as well. These certifications last for 2 years, and then you're recertified with us as they come up.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. With that, I'll turn it back to Rick. We're done.
Any questions?
Well done. No questions? Okay.
I'll end it just with, so that's your public safety initiative. It's the public safety initiative for the Borough of Conshohocken. It's made up of multiple team members, multiple departments. You have funding resources allocated specifically for it. And as you can tell from your presentations this evening, you are in good hands.
Thank you,
Thank
Steph.
you.
So we do as a council have one
One thing-
response.
One response to everyone.
To all of you. Thank you, guys. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, Bill. Bill. That's Bill. That one's Bill. That's Bill. Bill Bob.
Hard act to follow, guys.
No drones here. I'm signing up.
You got 10 minutes.
Where's your costume?
Are you rushing us? Is that what you're doing?
I think you guys rushed us, but feel free, just go right into it there.
So, are you ready? Okay. So thank you for having us. We do not like to sit down, so we decided to stand behind the podium. And I don't know if we need to stay still, but I can do whatever I want. We had the whole room almost to ourselves. Everybody left. So we wanted to give you all a quick update about things that have been happening with the EAC. We actually haven't done a presentation to Borough Council since 2018. So how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you were here in 2018? Okay, we're due for a kind of a presentation. So as you know, my name's Dominic Rocco. This is Tim Beckel. We are the chair and co-chair of the EAC. So let's go ahead and get started. Very simple agenda. We're going to talk about our members, we're going to talk about our initiatives, and we're going to showcase some of the highlights that we've been working on. So before we talk about our existing members, we wanted to actually give some thanks, some gratitude to, I'll call them our EAC alumni. You guys can use it if you want. So our EAC alumni, Matt Breitenstein, several of you know him. He moved out of the borough. Our former chair, Elisa Lansuti, was here to do the presentation on charging stations not that long ago. Tim Snyder was part of the Shade Tree team. I'm not supposed to say teams, but team. And then Mary Kate O'Brien, Curtis Miller, both our former members. So there's like our graduating class. We also wanted to take a minute to kind of thank Mayor Aronson, who's not here, but maybe he's watching on TV or whatever, and Ray, he's still here, as our former Borough Council liaison and our former Borough Administrative liaison, who was very helpful to us in the coming years, or in the previous years. Now, so this is our current class, right, of members. It's myself and Tim, who I already introduced. The only person who carried over from, I guess, the past year is Ashley. And I'm going to explain what those little stars mean in just a second next to the names. Okay, and so our new class, who just started at the beginning of this year, is Justin Claffey, Rich Kosich, Bob Maloney, and Diane Picone. So they're kind of our new class. They're kind of getting used to things like that. We also have Adrian Serna, who's now our new Borough Council liaison, and Bobby Joe. Please don't make me mispronounce her last name. She's been doing great. I'm not going to even try. I'll destroy it. I say everything with a Latin accent, so I don't know if that's... they both have been doing amazing work. All these existing members have been doing amazing work. We're really happy to have them. So,
do you want to explain the little notes?
Yes. So the little asterisks that you saw on this previous slide here are because we have vacancies. One of the biggest dangers of having a full complement is people leave. And so it happens at my job, and it's happening here as well. So we have two people who are not going to be seeking reappointment. And so a couple of people are left here, whoever's watching, we need you. And so if anyone's interested in being part of the EAC, please see us or someone from Borough Administration. We were going to bring Sprout here. If we knew the drone stuff was happening, we would have brought Sprout. We don't have anything else. That's all we got. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tim to talk about our initiatives, and I'll wrap us up.
Yep, so I'll go through kind of what we're working on and how things have changed, and then Dominic's going to dive into some of the more specific highlights, as you mentioned. So we're no longer operating as teams, and I think there's a really good reason for it. A few good reasons, one of which Dominic just mentioned. So we've both been with the EAC long enough that you see the turnover, the churn in people have lives, they move along. But people bring specific interests and talents to the team, right? And so as the team changes, some of what we're doing as an EAC has to change with it, with their interests and their talents and their skills. So with that being said, we have three kind of overarching initiatives. They're mutually reinforcing. Once I get into the details of them, but we have communications, education, and events. So communication is pretty self-explanatory. Can't really accomplish too much in the community if no one knows what's going on. So social media and public relations. So one of the things that one of our new members, Justin Claffey, is bringing to the table. He's an engineer by trade, and he has a lot of nuts and bolts knowledge that he's bringing to our social media channels that just frankly, I don't have that. I do a lot of reading, and there's lots of good information out there that we can share, and, but he's bringing kind of a homegrown element to it. So that's been really great to see. Don will get a little bit more into grape in a minute, but really that's kind of the opposite end of the social media, public relations spectrum, really engaging people on an individual basis. Friends are getting crunchy, so who doesn't like friends, right? So that's our core group of volunteers, and to be perfectly honest, that's the thing that took one of the biggest hits from COVID was the Friends are getting crunchy. So we've been trying our best to kind of re-engage those folks, and as we talk about our events, that's really how we bring people in, and so we're trying to re-engage folks in the community that want to do good work with us and help us out in all the things we're working on. I think local collaboration is pretty self-explanatory. Not just myself, but Dominic and others keep in touch with local EACs, and we try to collaborate, see what other folks are working on, and just share information. Because there's a lot of great work going on in the wider community, different events, different information that you can learn from other areas. Environmental recommendations. So I think that's, you've probably heard me, maybe the last time I was reappointed, I always thought we're great environmental doers, but advisory is in the name, and so we're always looking for ways to fill that role in the borough where it makes sense. So earlier this year, we were before you with Eliza talking about electric vehicle charging stations. More recently, with the Main Street overlay, we submitted recommendations related to that we thought made sense from an environmental perspective. So we're going to continue to do that as it makes sense within our mission. Education. So everything we do is education, right? Green energy and local climate action. We'll hope to talk more about that in the future. Writ large, green energy, the way we look at it is we had a great resolution, Ready for 100 commitment from the borough in 2019. And green energy, that's focused on how can we move the borough closer to that goal. And so that's what that team's really working on. You see some of these are pending because of volunteer time and resources. We can't work on everything we absolutely want to work on. So some of these are pending really the ability for our team to focus on them. And then events. So I'll start by just mentioning, so our next event is the fall cleanup. It's Saturday, October 15th, 10 a.m. at the Baji Club on 3rd Avenue. Hope to see many of you there. We'll provide free t-shirt, free cleanup kits, and then afterwards, Guppy has been kind enough to host an after party for our volunteers with some free appetizers, drink specials, that kind of thing. But events are kind of a core thing. So teams, initiatives, whatever, we're always going to have events that we're focused on. in addition to being at the community events like Fun Fest and Arts Fest, we have 2 annual cleanups, one in the spring, one in the fall. In the past, we have done, kind of taken the initiative on the plantings. Now with the loss of some of our great volunteers, like Tim Snyder that Dominic mentioned, the Borough is really stepping forward on that, and we're taking more of a supporting role. And so those things ebb and flow. And some of these others I'll let Dominic talk about, and we're going to get into some of the more specifics. But let's look at the successes. So we never really sat back and looked at the last few years. So our volunteers, so we normally have on these cleanups 75, 100 volunteers for an hour or 2. And we are missing a couple years, so they easily have picked up over 1.5 tons of trash off the streets, out of our storm drains, right? So it's not just about the waterways. Those are really important, right, to keep them as healthy as possible. But as we're talking about flooding, every bit of trash that we get off the streets is not clogging up our storm system, making it a little bit more efficient. And so it's a big part of, it's a lot of fun. It's great, and it shows that people aren't just showing up to hang out. They're actually picking up trash. And then also another great accomplishment of the borough, you all with the support that we had, was over 200 trees planted in the borough, mainly in Beefield, but also in Sutcliffe Park and Marywood. So, thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without your support. We couldn't have done it without all of our great volunteers as well.
Tim, what's the time frame that those trees were planted? Over how long?
I think it was, I want to say it was, the first one was probably fall of 19.
Since Tim Snyder's.
Yeah, basically, Tim Snyder's.
Yeah.
And but we couldn't have done it without the financial support of the borough, and really PHS as well, because they give us the really discounted trees.
I think it may have even been earlier than 2019. I'm trying to, I remember.
It may have been 18.
Yeah, right. Remember meeting him up at the Beefield and going through all the.
It's hard because we got that blip in the middle.
That COVID blip, yeah.
It's a blur.
It was a bit before COVID that we met
Right.
him, so. He was great.
And that's what our volunteers bring to the table, right? I mean, he had such great knowledge
And passion.
Passion,
He did,
absolutely
yes.
right. So we still miss him. He's still out there
Mm-hmm.
checking on his babies. We know he is. So
You might catch him on those cameras.
Drone footage.
but I'll turn it back over to Dom.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So a couple of the highlights that we wanted to cover. One of the things that we're going to be proposing to you all for approval, and I think it's officially going to be today because of the interest of time. This is actually Ray's idea, so you can blame him if it's a bad idea. But one of the things is that we like to do workshops, and what we were finding was that when we had workshops, we weren't really getting a lot of people showing up. It's hard to get the word out, and one of the things that we had a conversation about is, instead of doing these little workshops, why don't we just do one thing, put kind of everyone, bring the community together, have something, which I thought was a great idea. It's been done in other communities. We want to do something, we want to call it like the Green Fest, Conshohocken Green Fest. We want to propose one Earth Day, which would be April of next year, things that kids could do, things adults can do, and to learn about all these different things that you really can't get anywhere else. So I don't want to get into a lot of detail about it right now, because I think we're going to talk more about it. Right? We're going to talk a little more about it when because we have to officially make a request to you, and Adrian's giving me the eyeball. So talking more about this, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, all that stuff. I think we're going to do something come next month. All right, so here's the thing. One of the things I want to talk about is, so communications-wise, we realize now that you can't just put things out, especially in Conshohocken. Right? We got old Conshohocken, we got new Conshohocken. I'm kind of like middle Conshohocken. I've been here 20 years, but I wasn't born here. You still need that face-to-face time with people. And so this was raised by one of our new members as a way of engagement when we're actually doing things grassroots. We're meeting people at the ward level or inter-ward level, and this is where we really want to interact with you guys. On Borough Council, you know your constituents better than us. We can coordinate things. We can get Sprout out there. we can just get people to understand and get exposure so people know what green conchi is. What is an EAC? Most people have no idea what that acronym means. And so that is one of the things we're looking forward to doing, probably in the next year. Environmental education highlights. So one of the things we're finding is there are a lot of people interested in composting. And the fact that, especially that trash pickup is only one time a week, I think you're going to see even more interest in that. We've had several of our meetings where people have shown interest. They want to talk more about composting. And this is another thing we're going to talk more about with you all come next month. Specifically what we've been kind of thinking about, what kind of choices there are out there that we can do, things of that nature. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because you said I only had 10 minutes. And we'll let you guys ask us any questions.
So it's interesting that you said composting, because that is, I haven't really gotten a whole lot of feedback from the whole trash thing in my ward, except for people talking about composting and the services that come out, and they all just kind of got together and started talking about it and generated interest amongst each other. So I think that that's a great place.
Yes.
Dom, can you just give a brief, like what Justin and you all are, what entity you're working with?
Yes. So Back to Earth, which is a company that actually will come and pick up your food waste, non-meat food waste. They'll come once a week. So once every 2 weeks.
I think it's every 2 weeks.
They'll come on a little electric bike, pick the stuff up, and then take it somewhere, compost it, and then I guess the compost will be available to you, and you pay a fee for that. Right? So Justin has been doing that because Dr. Joe, did you win a contest or something? Or you won something. And then he volunteered to kind of do a pilot. And he was like, he would speak to you all day about it right now if he was here. But he said it's literally saving him a bag of trash a week because of that. So I think that's really something really important that we can share with the residents here about what are other ways that we can reduce waste.
So Justin's going to compile those results, correct? And kind of bring back a recommendation from the EAC? Great. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
And it would be good if we can get the word out so people who are interested in knowing more about composting can benefit from it.
Something that you kind of touched on was doing this at the personal level and the community level, a more grassroots approach. And I think you've kind of touched on this. It's a new initiative that I think is really neat, but discussing for those who like to garden, etc., things like native planting and being able to discuss like invasive plants as well as the insects that those bring. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the purpose of the native planting as well as the rain gardens and stuff?
Yeah, so one of the things, first of all, how many people buy their plants from Home Depot or Lowe's? I'm going to be the first one, right? So you really can't buy native plants there. So how do we educate people so they know where they can get native plants and show them what the benefits are, how they are much more beneficial than Asiatic lilies or whatever it is that you're getting at Home Depot. So people need to be educated about it. They're not going to get it at the big box stores. So we want to educate people about that. We haven't really been hit that hard with spotted lanternfly, but if you watch Saturday Night Live, they had that skit on it. I don't know if you guys saw it. But spotted lanternfly is something that'll probably continue to be something that people are interested in. So that is an invasive insect species. So we also want to talk about invasive plant species and how they affect. Because a lot of these species that we buy can actually be detrimental to the ecosystem. So we want to make sure that we are introducing good plants that are pollinators, because we know what's happening with the honeybees, so we want to try to improve that, create those what are they called? Waypoints, way stations. I don't know what they're called. They're like, so that we're benefiting various aspects of biodiversity today.
Yes.
Do you ever look at the Arbor Day Foundation?
Have I personally? No. But we just like, when we get approval for this we get approval for this Dream Fest, and we want to bring all those different experts together. So one of the things with the Green Fest is it's not so much us trying to educate people, it's bringing people in who are experts so they can talk about, hey, I want to put solar panels in, I want to get native plants. And we want to get people who actually live in the borough who have native gardens, except you. Native gardens. So they can learn lessons learned. I mean, don't plant this, plant that, or whatever it is. There's a ton of things that we can learn from one another, which is what great, that's what it's all about. So, grassroots. Awesome. Intended. Other questions? No?
Great work.
Yeah, thank you so much for the work you do.
It's very, very nice presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for all those trees. Thanks for cleaning all that trash.
It's fun to pivot, isn't it? When you're all set and ready to go, and then you got to pivot because people leave. But you did a nice job kind of couching it for the future. So.
Yeah, and to make this, try to get this on the Screen Fest we're talking about, we know we have 2 members going on, so we're really going to want to try to get some people on board. And then try to get our friends, Green Marcy activated as well.
Great. That'll be great.
Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, next item on the agenda is Manager Matters, and I will turn that over to Ms. Checo.
We have an escrow on the agenda this evening for 204 East 8th Avenue. It is a final escrow release in the amount of $207.41. I'd be looking for a motion if inclined.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
In the capital budget for 2022, we had a locker room renovation project at the community center. That project went out through an RFP process. Through that RFP, we had Delos Construction who responded to the RFP. They were therefore the only bidder and the low bidder. Our recommendation this evening is to award that bid to Delos Construction in the amount of $21,000 for the locker room renovation project. It is within the threshold that you budgeted for 2022.
Thank you, Steph. So the motion this evening from council is to award a bid to Delos Construction in the amount of $21,000 for the locker room renovation project at the community center.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The last item, we are proposing that council consider transferring ownership of a 2015 Chevy Tahoe, which is within our depreciation schedule and no longer of use to the borough, to Narberth Ambulance. Per Borough State Code, we are permitted to transfer that property to Narberth, and we are proposing this evening that it would be in the amount of $10. And if inclined, we would be looking for you to approve Resolution 2022-29.
Okay, so the motion this evening is to approve Resolution 2022-29, authorizing the sale of the borough's 2015 Chevy Tahoe to Narberth Ambulance in the amount of $10.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there anyone this evening for public comment? You could come up to the podium and state your name and address for the
How you
record.
doing? My name's Ed Zale. I live over at the Grand, and just wanted to talk about how terrific one of the employees is. I call up, complain about a light that's been out for 2 years. Within a week, it's fixed. Call up, complain about the dog park grass isn't been getting cut. Within a week, the grass gets cut. Raised people cuts the grass. Call up and ask about some work that Aqua Pennsylvania did on front of Guppy's, and they did it a month later. The macadam is sinking, and the trucks are rumbling over it. So I just to Stephanie, and she gets all this stuff done. She does.
She is amazing. We count our blessings every day.
And she's good people. You're lucky to have her.
Thank you.
One other thing, though. She didn't pay me. She really did.
Thank you very much, that was great.
And if you could look into one other thing, maybe SEPTA does it, or the borough does it, but you have those yellow poles on, I think Poplar, Chestnut, and a couple other streets where the railroad tracks are. And you had them on Harry, but they're down. And I was just wondering if you could ask SEPTA to look them back up, because they do make a difference when people are walking here. So they are still in place in the other streets on Washington Avenue. It's just at Harry, they somehow, maybe the cars keep hitting them there. Thanks, Stephanie.
We got the best person on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Sale.
Anyone else for public comment? No. Stacy, you ready?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
Adrian?
Yes, I would like to remind everyone that the EAC cleanup is going to be October 15th, 10 a.m. at the Conshohocken Bocce Club. So please join us and pick up some trash.
I don't have anything for this evening, thank you.
Nothing? I am, again, it is my turn to be the mayor. So I will, since Mayor Aronson is not here this evening, I'm just going to go over a few of his highlights for the week. The first is the Conshohocken Police Department shredding. Every September, the mayor, the Conshohocken Police Department, and Coldwell Banker Realty hold a free community paper shredding event for the residents. This year was, once again, a big success. A special thank you to Detective Bill Walter of our Conshohocken Police Department for helping to organize the shredding and for taking the time to engage with some of the young people at the event. Everyone looks forward to hosting the event again next September. The next, there we go. The next item coming up is before our next meeting is the pumpkin painting at the community center on Saturday, October 15th. So you can go do the trash cleanup and then go up and paint pumpkins at the community center and guppies afterwards. It's this painting, the pumpkin painting is a free event with all materials provided, but please remember that everyone needs to RSVP by either calling the community center or by visiting the rec desk website. Thank you. And the last item is the Halloween parade. Our annual Halloween parade and costume contest will be held on Saturday, October 22nd at Marywood Park. Registration opens at 3 p.m. for kids, families, and pets. The parade will run at 4 p.m. sharp. This year, the rain date will be on Sunday, October 23rd, and we hope to see everyone there. It's always a fun event. So there are our mayor matters. Chief Metz, did you have anything this evening? No? Okay. Tina?
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. I do have one thing. I would just like to take a moment. One of our residents passed away this week, Phil Candelor, who a lot of you may not realize, but was at our meetings all the time. He sat there and he just paid attention. Every now and then he would ask a question. He was a very quiet, calm man, but he was a lifelong resident of the borough. He cared about the borough deeply, and I know that it is a huge loss to his husband, his family, his neighbors, because he was always out and friendly and was always here, and he would just come in quietly, watch the meeting, and then off he would go again. So just my condolences. I know I will miss him. I've known him my whole life. He was a wonderful person. And that's it for this evening. So with that, I will say, meeting adjourned, and I missed Phil this evening.